Hello, everybody. I'm Prince of Queens coming to you live with my friend Haresay, who is good at digging for live news as it comes out and weird, pertinent details to various internet figures. He was, I believe, the person that told me that. Oh, shoot. I'm hearing myself in my headphones. Oh, I hate that. Um, Wait, why? Oh,
Difficulties at the start of the stream.
okay. I always do stuff like that. Okay, so I think you were the first person that told me that you figured out that if you donate at least $1 to Steve Shives,
Shives, you
yeah.
get asked to a private Google Hangout, which means he's technically unblocking you. So, though apparently Sargon's already attempted to take him up on that offer and has not received the invite.
I wonder if I could do it because he doesn't know. I don't even care about him at all. Like all these people just love to pick on him because it's easy. I think but like I have not watched a single one of his videos. I've only seen little. Like the only thing I know about him basically is that little teeny like clip where his wife is talking about like, well, yeah, of course you like Angel better because you're a man or whatever. Like that's like the only fucking thing I know about him.
Oh, don't forget his wife totally talked about how his choice in music was misogynistic. And that he had misogynistic music on the shelf, on the music rack, and she like started berating him on his own, and he put this on YouTube.
Yeah,
it's just like
that doesn't surprise me in the least. So like, yeah, I don't really know much about Steve Shives. I don't find him interesting. But it would be really funny if I'm well thought of as one of the nicest kind of anti-SJW people. I almost never make response videos. It's not really what I do, and I try to at least sort of connect with how these people actually think and hopefully get
he was
through
a part of
them.
the atheist split where some atheists became social justice warriors because they wanted to continue to bang on about Christianity. And at that time, a lot of atheist channels were starting to look at Islam and starting to look at the kind of...
You're getting robot-y.
Oh, sorry, I was stepping somewhat down my hallway. Is that better?
Not quite yet. So yeah. So Steve Shives was part of some sort of atheist split. Wait, I think I know what you're talking about. This is when Atheism Plus. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. If anyone watching, I want your mic to get better so I can sort of explain this. Atheism. There was this new atheist movement that started probably I don't know how many years ago, but well over 5 years ago, and it kind of morphed. It went into sort of two different directions. There was the people who were the atheist plus, which were basically when feminism came and conquered atheism, and sort of. Well, okay, so I think atheism was kind of a weird banner to rally people behind. What the original intention was kind of like the new atheist movement with the Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, and they were debunking religion, and they were using the atheist label as a way to debate religious type people, and they were normally just massacring them in the debates. And then a lot of people wanted to do some sort of a similar type of thing, so they used the atheist label as a way of creating YouTube channels, which is fine, except for it ultimately is kind of very vague. Like what is an atheist? Well, it's the lack of anything, basically. Like there's no unifying principles behind atheism. So it was easily infected by ideologues, and the ideologues got to it, and that's what the feminists did, and it sucked. And Steve Shives ended up on the feminist side of the atheist movement, which is sad because that everybody else, like all the other atheists, sort of morphed into anti-SJWs, and then that sort of morphed more into skeptics or fucking, I don't know. Now the alt left is starting to come up, but people won't really call it the alt left. But I think that the people like the Sargons and the Dave Rubins and the you know, people who are have the similar opinions to similar opinions to myself. I think that we're going to be the next big trend, just if for no other reason but because the internet is always about counterculture. So people who are alt-left, now that we have a Republican president, the alt-left is going to shine because we are going to be the counter-narrative to what is going on. So let's see, is your audio working better?
Let's see. I had to close a lot of tabs.
It's not really working that much better. People in the chat, there's already 39 people watching. That's wonderful. So if anybody in the chat is my friend, Broadcast, would you like to come into the Hangout? Can you do this, Ryan? Because I would love to talk to you, and he would be a good person to talk to about this. He's been through all sorts of communist, socialist. He's read all of the Marx books and can explain them to you and that kind of stuff. But he's also fully aware that the people who are, you know, to think that they want to be communists these days basically don't know anything about the principles. And so he would be a good person to look at this. Yeah. So blah 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 blah. I'll join your hangout. Jared Davis. Unfortunately, I don't really know you. You say that you're a genius. But okay, Sam is sure. Okay. Oh, cool. He wants to come. So I'm gonna tweet it at you, Ryan. Ryan will tweet at you. So is your audio working?
Let's try now. Is it much better?
No, it's not. Or
like tons of different programs. I'm trying to upgrade the sound quality. I think I might have an idea.
Oh, now it's better.
If one second, I'm going to continue to try this then.
Okay.
I'm also on the side looking for a hard cable to jam into my headset. I have one of those wireless mics that allows me to move freely so I can monitor news broadcasts.
Mm-hmm. It's actually not that better now. It kind of got worse again. Okay, so let me. Okay, so but talk about something even though your audio is bad, because I have to tweet it too. Yeah. So.
Well, the ironic part is a lot of this came down to, and I was watching this, and a lot of these news broadcasters, basically, when the second the riots broke out and started getting violent, some of them turned away, some of them actually did their journalistic jobs and kept watching. But when they kept watching, you saw something very interesting. You saw a lot of communist anarchy flags. And the anarcho-communists have been a slowly growing movement. And I think a lot of them are disenfranchised college students that are looking to vent their frustrations because you know how.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. They definitely are.
So really, their ranks of because let's face it, anarchists were not a well-liked organization up until recent months. And the fact that there's been a recent explosion in their behavior, and most of it violent, I'm sure is giving a lot of credence to like the 1950s Red Scare kind of thing. You know what I mean?
That makes perfect sense. Well, and it's weird, like, you know, anarchism and communism is the most diametrically nonsense. It doesn't make sense. That's that they cancel each other out. You cannot actually be an anarcho-communist. It makes no sense.
Small scale communism works, but that's because you know it's small scale, and everybody knows everybody, and everybody's willing to try to work for certain things. It works on a small scale, but not for long.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and on a potentially small scale, but like, is that even government? Like, does it even count as communism, or is that just a bunch of people deciding like who's good at
stuff? It's
a
community of people. Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, and that's the thing. Like the people who I think that Ryan, you need to close your window. Hold up. The people that are identifying as like, okay, so Ryan, you're gonna have to unmute yourself when you think that your window is closed and that you can talk. So the people that are identifying as anarcho-communists and everything, I think that, and I say this because I know some of them. I know people who are like obsessed with being queer activists, and they will proudly tell you that they don't vote, but then they will always protest the day after the vote. You know, and all they ever do is reactionary protest activism. That's their entire way of being politically engaged. And I don't think a single one of their protests has ever been successful in any way. I don't think that they've ever gotten their way. And it's like there's this whole culture based around protesting. These are people who proudly don't vote. They proudly don't even watch any sort of news media. Like I don't really know where they get their news media. I think it's entirely like rumors through Facebook, and these people are not informed at all, and yet they think that they're political. So I think that their entire theory of government, and the reason that they would call themselves an anarchist, is because they reject politics entirely, and that's all that really means to them. Like because they can, in their social reality, they can live by rejecting the system, and they think like, oh well, we don't watch TV and we go to punk rock shows and we blah 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 blah, and then they dumpster dive outside of bakeries for bread to eat, and they think that they can just do that, and then that's their version of anarchism. And then they think that since that they can build community, then they think that would work in terms of like they can make the whole world like that. But these people only live in certain places. They only live in areas of general abundance. Like these people live in places like Olympia, Washington, and Eugene, Oregon, which are college towns where it's pretty easy to find, shelter and food. They have structures around, helping out the homeless and things like that. So it's pretty easy to find free meals and all of that stuff. They think that this could work on a bigger government scale, simply because they're just too ignorant to know any better. They've never stepped outside of their bubble. They don't understand that is dependent upon the system that we already have in place, and that they are actually at a very privileged intersection of crossroads of stuff that they can just sort of mooch off of, and that's why they have their beliefs as they do. Hi, Ryan.
Sup, man? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, never mind, bud. Younger son in the background. But yeah, that's a pretty good summary of what I keep thinking of them as a slightly more sophisticated kind of teenage rebellion.
Yeah.
With a bit of a kind of a political veneer over top of it. On the alt-left groups that I mod on Facebook, what I find that I get a lot of is people coming into my groups coming from these so-called ANCOM or groups that have almost no basis in actual real socialist economic theory.
Yeah.
It's all postmodern, it's all identity politics, it's all crap you would get in the colleges and universities.
Mix in with a little food, not bombs.
Yeah. I mean, they would have no idea what something like, say, the CNT FAI back in Spain in 1935. They wouldn't know how something like that worked. That was an actual instance of its classic sense on a broader scale. They wouldn't have a clue how to organize something like that.
Yeah. So we're going to take a look at Haresay has data mined the internet for some photos of protesters and their signs and stuff. So I think that we do you want to start screen sharing some of these photos?
Right. Oh, it seems great. I have to dig the last one up because the last one was fantastic. I have it. Okay. Hold on. I have it on my Facebook stream. It shouldn't take long.
Okay.
But it's a barrage of things coming out of these protests because people with cameras are thankfully people with cameras.
Yeah, that's cool. God, I was looking at what was it called? It was like a queer dance party that was outside of Mike Pence's house. Did anyone see footage of that?
Oh yeah. Oh, there's footage of a reporter being attacked by Antifa fascists.
Oh, a reporter?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that. I saw a Trump supporter get his hat ripped off, and I think he got punched at some point. But no, fucking irate bear is streaming. You cunt! I'm gonna fucking go and trash talk.
Oh, it wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was a guy with a Pepe the Frog, a pin on his shirt.
Oh, okay. That's so funny that these people like
Spencer, I think.
Oh, he had jumped by an Antifa.
Punched earlier.
Punch in the face.
Richard Spencer got punched in the face?
Yeah, punched in the face.
Got caught right on camera.
Oh my god, that's gonna be... Okay, there's part of me that wants to say that I really don't care because that guy creeps me out. But at the same time, that's totally gonna add legitimacy to him and his movement. And so it's not a good idea to do things like that. And yeah, shame on them. That's really...
Well, a friend of mine on Facebook, he said, who's a hardcore regressive leftist, by the way, almost quintessential, an old high school buddy of mine. He's a guy I talked to you about in the response I gave to one of your videos the other day. He said something, he posted something, it was, the tone of it was kind of sarcastic, but it's like, good job, rioters, good job making us look bad. And that's really the crux of the problem with this. I mean, the left comes out of this just looking awful.
Yeah. I'm going to screen share I mean, yeah, the left is just making themselves look worse and worse and worse. Like it's kind of like, they used to have a backstage for their show, and then all of a sudden the curtain got pulled up and the lights are on and they're all changing, and it's like, oh wait, you guys, this is what you guys do. This is what you guys think, and you look fucking ridiculous. And I'm going to show, just in case anybody in the audience has not seen the fucking this shit, because this fucking guy, oh my god, he's like, and okay, so he's ridiculous, of course, and he's like the ringleader. Apparently he's like the only one that like is really dancing a whole bunch. And of course, I'm sorry, I'm a quarter Jewish, but like, of course it's some fucking Jewish queen, but like, let's go back a little bit. This is supposed to be a queer dance party for Mike Pence. So you think it would be like a gay guy. Okay, look at the crowd. This is not gay. This is not queer. This is fucking a feminist thing. Look, how many guys compared to girls? And are those even lesbians? Like, queer has become...
wrapped in a rainbow flag that got in the face of one of the Alex Jones reporter fellows.
Dude, your audio is really quite bad. I really want it to be better. Okay, this footage, you can see more guys than in, but still, even still, there's like, it's like 85% women here, and that's what most, and also the guys that are there don't look like they're gay guys. Like I saw like 2 guys that look like they're gay. It's mostly fucking women, and I don't even think that they're necessarily lesbians. I think that queer has officially just become feminist. That's all that it means now. And I no longer identify as being queer. I used to identify as being queer because it used to mean like non-assimilationist, non-mainstream, homosexual or bisexual or whatever, transgender. That's what it used to mean. Now queer means feminist, and that is the status quo. I no longer identify with the term. That's why labels are annoying. And Haresay, do you wanna pull up your photos that you got? Okay, I can't hear him. I think he's trying to fix his audio. But apparently he got some photos of queer protester, anarcho-capitalist people. My friend sent me a text message asking if he thought that Trump would survive the inauguration. And because he knows all sorts of, like regressive leftist, queer anarchist type idiots. Like he knows these people. And what I told him is that I was guessing that Trump would actually survive. And the reason that I think so is because these people just aren't, anybody who has a problem with him, like who would want to kill him, is not intelligent enough to pull off a successful assassination.
Quite true, yeah.
Hearing me loud and clear now?
Yeah.
Much better.
It does sound a lot better.
I played with the DVD quality of the quality of the microphone, and I upgraded it a ton, so it shouldn't be much bit clearer now.
Awesome. So did you have anything to say that I kept cutting off because your audio sounded bad?
No worries. I'm digging through some of the live streams I saw it on. Is I sent you the one picture in a tweet of the. I don't know if that's an entirely real picture, but it's that kind of flag, because I don't think it's a real picture, because the actual symbols they were using was that exact symbol, but gold and yellow. You know, classic communist style.
Huh. Interesting.
Then there was the half diagonal red Antifa flags that were flying, you know, but those are the anarcho-communist flags. But they also had a lot of Antifa protesters mixed in with them.
Here, I'll share it in a second. I'm sending somebody else the Hangout.
No worries, I'm still digging quite a bit.
Okay. So, and then you sent me these two different pictures. Okay. Oh, that's weird. Let's screen share this. I wasn't expecting it to look like this. Let's see, present to everyone. There we go. Okay, here's one of them. I have never seen such a thing.
Yeah, and a lot of those were literally flying over some of the protesters that were marching. But I think I don't know if that picture is entirely accurate, because it's in the right spot, but the ones they had were gold, and they were the classic golden sickle and hammer with all of the logo mixed in, which is kind of ironic if you know the Communist Party's history with lesbian, gay, and bisexual rights.
Yeah. I can't help but feel, in looking at this, that I almost I don't want to say, okay, I'll just say what I was thinking, but this isn't, you know, my entire personal view. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, behold the enemy for the next 4 years. And I say that because this symbol looks like it could be emblematic for the regressive leftist, true believer, fourth wave intersectional the intersectional feminist, communist, the people who want a crazy oppressive communist government that privileges the most quote unquote oppressed people ahead of everybody else, and gives them things that they don't deserve in a really unfair way, that the way in which they made very clear they wanted over the past 2 years, and in the way that they were horrible to anybody who had a disagreement. They thought it was completely fair to fire somebody for their job for a tweet, as long as they were a white male who said something mean to a trans woman of color. They had no morals, they had no sense of actual justice. They wanted the world to be unfair in their favor, because they felt that they are owed something based on their identity. That symbol looks to me like it could be the rallying symbol for these people. And I've thought about it, what if Trump winning, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, because these people are just so stupid, and they always fight with each other. Like, they're always constantly fighting with each other. I don't think it's actually going to happen, but there is a slight possibility that Trump's presidency will mobilize these people into actually getting organized and making their because they hate him so much that they will cause a rebellion, and then this will actually enact some sort of crazy oppressive communist intersectional government. But that's a very unlikely thing, because I don't trust these people to actually do anything.
I think that if those people really tried to get their act together and actually tried a rebellion, I think what you'd end up with is the opposite. They would be crushed by force.
Yeah.
With a genuine right-wing authoritarianism in America.
Yeah.
Fulfilling prophecy. Like, it wouldn't have happened if they would not have tried to kick off such a harebrained and botched revolution to begin with.
Yeah.
And the ironic part is I'm checking
everything about this is poorly.
Go on. Sorry,
everything about this is poorly thought out, and the thing that's really driving it is egocentrism and attention seeking.
Mm-hmm.
A single constant motif and theme all across the regressive left, all across these protests, the people carrying these flags, everything like that. That's what drives it.
Yeah.
It looks like the New York Times aided in organizing these people too, because there was apparently articles I missed in the New York Times that were promoting and linking to these refuse fascism, anti-fascist, anarcho-communist groups.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't it seem strange to you, though, that a major news media corporation, probably Fortune 500 publicly traded company, would be trying to agitate these supposedly revolutionary leftists? Doesn't that seem fishy to you?
Oh, it does. It absolutely does. And I've definitely thought,
and they're stupid enough to take it at face value. That's
well,
the thing
knowing
about it.
them,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably thinking, well, Trump is already literally calling us fake news publicly. We're probably not going to get a seat in the White House, in the correspondence, because he say he's going to handpick them. So they're probably thinking, well, we might as well win over the anarcho-communists and try to, skid on that viewership.
Yeah, I definitely I see both angles, and I think this is a very valid question. We're getting tinfoil hattie, but my channel gets tinfoil hattie, so let's go. Let's do this. I think what Ryan is, I believe, saying is that it looks too good to be true for the regressive left, that they have this major news media siding with them, like in all their full-blown idiocy, being like, yeah, it's cool, guys, go show yourselves. It's almost too good to be true. It's almost like maybe they are anticipating the right-wing authoritarianism to come as a response to squash it out. Right? That's what you're saying, right, Ryan?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, I think is possibility, yes. I mean, the thing of it is, though, is the radical left in America, for all its bluster, is no threat to the power.
Yeah.
At all. Like, it's all show, and I think it goes back to what I just said. I think their actions are political at all. I think it's a veneer of politics over top of social grandstanding.
It's like they're kind of all bark no bite.
To insult them in their own words, I would call this recent boon and boom really to the anarcho-communist rioters. The sudden explosive growth of people under their flag. I think it comes mainly from people who are literally actually statists, who don't want the United States to shift power, who don't want anything to change, but because they specifically had the Liberal Party, who is, in more recent years starting to swing into socialism, and as I don't want to say socialism begets communism, but it has a very similar core ideology. So it would be comparable to having a republic and a democracy to them.
Mm. I like to think that we, under the Democratic Party, especially over the past 5 or 6 years, with the exceedingly sterilizing student loan debt. Sterilizing is kind of a metaphor word. I should be using a better word, but the way that people get in student loan debts, and they're so in student loan debt that they have to take whatever job they can, whatever reasonably paying job. So they graduate with $60,000 worth of student loan debt. They were hoping that they could get $100,000 job, $100,000 payment a year job, but then they end up only being able to get a $50,000. So they're not even going to be able to pay off even a fraction of their student loan debt, and they actually the debt just grows and grows and grows. That, for people to get their education and then to be put in a debt that they are not going to get out of, but they are forced to take the job that's the highest paying, and they're forced to get that job through their internships and all these things. That is not dissimilar to communism by itself. Like, no. It's functionally basically like communism.
And the ironic part comes down to when they were talking to, and I hate using Alex Jones as a good reference, but Alex Jones's reporters were literally trying to talk to them. And a lot of the main complaint came that, oh, we have college loan debts that aren't going to be paid off now. These are people that were probably banking on Bernie, and then Clinton, when she claimed that she would also, do something about student loan debt. And they were probably banking on that because they know with that kind of debt and the kind of career opportunities the market is currently lacking, because let's face it, a lot of these fields that that a lot of people are going into in college and universities these days are go nowhere, do nothing fields.
Mm-hmm. Well, and a lot of them are, they continue to build University Incorporated. These are people who graduate with sociology degrees and gender study degrees and anything, anthropology even. And 9 times out of 10, the only job that they can get is to be an adjunct professor. And these people start working for usually the university that they went to, and they can't even make ends meet. So they're an adjunct professor that also drives Uber, and they basically evangelize for their students into the same type of thing. They start teaching sociology and basically being like, yeah, you can be like me. It's cool. I'm fine, even though I drive Uber. That was not a sustainable thing, obviously, culturally. Eventually, culturally, there was going to be a bunch of people that realized, wait, this is fucked up. We can't, don't send your kids to school for this. And we're having that backlash right now. And a lot of it is happening on YouTube. It's so, the education that people are getting about feminism and sociology, and racism and blah, blah, blah. A kid can go on YouTube for 2 months and get obsessed with, anti-SJW channels and men's rights advocates and Christina Hoff Sommers and know way more about feminism than a fucking person that, took an entire course.
Because what they do, I'll tell you what this is about, I think, Prince. I think you remember what Karl Marx said about religion. He said that it was the heart of the heartless world, the sigh of the oppressed, the opiate of the masses. Going back to that new atheism thing you were discussing a little bit earlier, a lot of people really did kind of back away from religion as a result of that. The need for religion, the purpose that religion played in the whole sort of social order didn't really go away, and to a fair extent, social justice took it over. This is a surrogate religion for people.
Well, there's also
it absolutely is.
I loved it when they described themselves, but there was a cult of atheist Satanists that were marching as well, and they were one of the sideshows that got caught on camera. And then the reporters run up to the people with pentagram flags and flowing black robes of I swear to God, as much fucking leather on them as humanly possible amongst the black robes. And they were like, "What are you?" And they were like, "Oh, we're the local Columbia District atheist Satanist cult church temple, was it?" And they kept walking, and I was just like, that hurt my brain. You can't be an atheist Satanist. That's not what atheism means.
I've known people that were involved in Anton LaVey's Church of Satan. I've had a few conversations with them over the years. It really is atheistic. There are some so-called Satanists that pay homage to a dark lord of sorts, but for the most part, rejection of the ethics of Christianity more so than anything, just sort of dressed up in a lot of horror story tropes, basically. It's ethical egoism and atheism sort of dressed up like the bad guys of a B horror movie. That's essentially the downside, but the whole of it.
Huh. I was listening to and was kind of engaging with Jordan B. Peterson's. Are you guys familiar with him?
To a small degree.
Yeah, so he he's really cool, and he's very anti-social justice warriors, but he's also a Christian, and he is he's always been fairly religious, and he said that he spent something like 10 years trying to reconcile himself with this idea, like, how can I be a scientist, into, like, because he's a social scientist, I think he's a social psychologist. He studies the way of group interactions, and authoritarianism is his specialty. And he was trying to reconcile how he could be religious at the same time as so into things like scientific data in his work. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but one of the things that I took from it as an individual was that the religious, when people don't have religion, when people don't have, sort of a list of 10 commandments that they hold pure in their heart, they will start subconsciously looking for something else. And that's where intersectional feminism becomes really dangerous, because people can start believing this shit because they think, oh, well, maybe I am privileged by being male, but not privileged because I'm not white, and maybe I can just calculate everybody's oppression with simple arithmetic, and maybe we should just base the world around that and give because they don't like I look at myself, for example, and I do believe in karma, and it's an actual belief of mine. It's part of my worldview. I believe in some sort of cosmic order to the universe in some sort of weird abstract. This comes from doing a lot of psychedelic drugs. I think I see things coming around, and they start to. They start to make sense, and I have these weird fundamental ways that are not actually things that I choose to believe. These are things that I actually believe, and I can't help that but believe that. So those are something that have given me a moral compass, and I can't divorce myself from those things. I guess some people believe in Jesus Christ in that way, but I have no concept of what that would be like, because I was not raised religiously. My dad was a computer scientist. He was very non-religious. So because I have beliefs, I have spiritual beliefs, they're very personal and they're very hard to explain. I can't get sucked into weird ideological thinking, because I can see it for being unfair. If I see somebody being treated unfair and somebody thinks it's justified based on some ideology, I tell them to go to hell. And I can't not tell them to do that, because that's just how I see things.
It's an insult, though.
Mm-hmm. Oh, an inconvenient insult?
No, it's a very convenient insult, because it's essentially saying, I want you to go to a place where you're going to suffer for the rest of eternity.
Yeah, or at least until they change their tune.
Depending on what you believe.
Yeah.
Also, in retrospect, if hell actually exists, which I'm one of those people that banks on the human psyche creates God in a kind of similar psychedelic sense, but I think it really comes down to this key principle is and I've studied psychology and sociology and philosophy for a good while, and when men completely abandon God or any degree of faith whatsoever, any belief in anything, they tend to start drifting towards a sociopathic, kind of psychopathic trend, where they believe it doesn't really matter what I do because there's no one really judging me, and they tend not to think, well, other people will judge me.
Mm-hmm.
But then that doesn't occur to them, because they think, oh, if I do it in secret, nobody will know and nobody will judge me. And it allows people to basically come to terms with their own violence and come to terms with their own anger.
That makes a lot of sense too, because you look at intersectional feminist social justice warrior people, they're all just such fucking pathological liars. They think they're all I have almost never come across a single one of them that's not just a fucking flagrant liar. They will lie about people and they get caught. They will get in an argument online and they'll selectively edit what happened and then go share it with all their friends, thinking that they can smear the person. And then the person has to do is go back and screen capture what actually happened and share it with their friends, and they get caught over and over. And this has been happening, and it's what got them to think that they wouldn't get caught? This is the internet. You can't just lie about people on the internet. The internet doesn't forget.
Because they live in an echo. I hate using the term echo chamber because it's not a true echo chamber. The little sounds get in once in a while, but they live in a community that distinctly buys, and I don't think they all buy into each other's shit, but they know if they start whistling, they'll know other people will come along and whistle with them.
Yeah, and there, yeah, exactly. And there was a period in time, around 2015, where as long as they had enough people listening loud enough, they could drown out the truth. And so they knew that they were lying, and they knew that it didn't matter because they could bully the truth away. But eventually it came back to haunt them in 2020.
What you're talking about, and it's an issue that I've discussed in my blog and on my own YouTube channels a bit. And in fact, I'm putting a video about this together right now.
His video, sorry, let me just say this to the audience. His channel is samas.broadcast. It's one of my related featured channels of friends, so you should go check out his channel, samas.broadcast. Okay, keep going, Ryan.
And it's this concept that I've read about being applied to the far right, like to the Tea Party paleocons, because they kind of went through the same sort of thing. And it's this idea of epistemic closure, meaning a very closed belief system that continually and consistently finds ways of hand-waving and dismissing inconvenient facts and inconvenient arguments, and relies on groupthink and echo chamber type in order to protect itself and insulate itself against other belief systems, because they know that once they start making concessions to their opposition, it's all over. Yeah. Once the dominoes start falling, it happens very, very quickly. That's what happened in Eastern Europe in the 1980s.
That makes absolute sense. And I was actually just talking to my mom on the phone today about little social justice periods. I think that ours right now is worse than in the 1990s, during the PC era of the 90s, simply because we have social media and the internet now, so it's spread quicker. So not only does it look a lot worse because people have access to, looking at Cat Black on YouTube, and they're like, this woman is fucking insane. How do 115,000 people subscribe to her channel? She's a fucking lunatic, but at the same time, it's spread. It's bigger than it is in the 90s. But this did, Ryan remembers this very well. We've talked about this. It's definitely happened, and in the 90s, and in the places where it was prevalent, the college campuses, it was probably every bit as bad if you were in the social justice crowd in the 1990s. It wasn't as developed, but they were really well, and it wasn't as bad. I don't think that anybody was talking about how calling somebody stupid was ableist in the 90s. I don't think they got that far with it. But
well, there's good news and bad news. Like the ideology of political correctness, the intersectional feminism, and that it's much flakier and more extreme now than it was. Or views that would have been considered extreme even when political correctness was at its first height in maybe the late 80s and early 90s. Mm-hmm. Militant separatist feminism or anti-PIV feminism or something like that is now considered the road, really. On the other hand, though, the opposition to political correctness is much greater and much better organized now than it was then, too. 90s,
unlike then, we have a figurehead.
Conservatives had the odd conservative here and there maybe grumbling about it.
Yeah.
I mean, whereas now you have an across the spectrum against this that's really gaining steam fast.
Yeah, where there's people out there that are just taking it apart with a scalpel and just like, this is how you're wrong in 25 different ways in under 10 minutes, there is that.
It's made a difference. Like, I mean, 4 or 5 years ago, things were worse than they are now.
Yeah,
well, the thing is,
I can imagine. But here's what I was why I brought up the 90s is that what happened is that this came in the 90s, and then we have the Christina Hoff Sommers and Camille Pollias of the world, and they made it all the way on Bill Maher. Bill Maher was somebody who didn't, necessarily have time to devote his work to taking apart this philosophy piece by piece. He was a bit more of of a response channel almost. Like he just mocked it. He had some politically correct guests come on his show, and people made fun of him, and they eventually kind of went away. It was sort of like Bill Maher would be kind of like the equivalent of somebody like Bering, where he doesn't spend a whole lot of his time really, really delving in deep into the arguments, but he definitely makes them look stupid, and then once popular culture sort of realizes that this stuff is stupid, then it becomes uncool, and it becomes uncool really quick. And not only does it become uncool really quick, but even a lot of the people that were true believers abandon it and get really embarrassed that they were. But then there's this weird thing that happens where it almost acts like everybody wants to act like it doesn't happen. It didn't happen. Like everyone wants, because it's so embarrassing once you realize what happened, so like you can look back at relics from the 90s. Like there's a film called PCU. Do you remember that, Ryan?
No, never saw it.
There's a movie about political correctness on a university campus, and there's this fraternity that was like a rebel fraternity that was really un-PC, and it revolves around the fraternity. It's kind of a funny movie. It would be worth revisiting because it's like see how many parallels are true to this day. And there's things like that, and there were some skits from the 90s on sketch comedy, like Kids in the Hall, which talked about political correctness. And so you can tell when you look back on culture that it did get pretty bad. It did, but somehow it changed so quickly around the year 2000, especially when Bush got in office, and it was just so uncool to be PC. And I think it's sort of this mentality of like, once people realize that they did something really embarrassing, they want to never speak of it again, and it just culture just changes. So,
but that also can create, because I think the reason why these groups, these very actually violent, quote unquote PC, I'm not going to call them PC, because the Antifa protesters are definitely not PC. What ended up happening is these Black Lives Matter and other groups that were really just campaign shells for Clinton interests and other interests in the states, died off because the election was over, and this created a vacuum for protesters because all of the direction was gone, and these new, more radical, more violent protesters who were like, well, we're going to go to Washington and riot and break stuff and do something about it, rallied attention, and the vacuum was filled really quickly by radicals, which is what always happens when a power vacuum is created.
They definitely created a monster with this stuff, and they thought that even if Clinton did win, like she was the queen of the regressive left. I don't care what anyone says. Like it was all for her. Like it was all, the regressive left was a gigantic offering to Goddess Clinton, and it didn't even work. But even if she did win that fucking election, she still would have had a tiger by the tail that she created. Like she still would have had the Black Lives Matter protesters that weren't intersectional feminists. Sure, it was started by intersectional feminists that were queer Black women who, demand all the credit every chance that they can get, blah, 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 blah. But those are not the people that are beating up white people at random in Milwaukee and in Charlotte. And she would have not been able to control that even if she won. But now they don't even have the guidance of the leader that they thought that they were banking on winning with all this stuff. And so there's, what you said, there's just like these mindless anarchists. And these are people who will proudly tell you that they don't read any newspapers because they don't believe it. They don't watch the news, and they don't vote. Like the only news that they look at is like photocopied pamphlets that
costs 50 cents to get out of these people's hands, by the way.
Yeah, they pass them out with backpacks at little anarchist rallies, and Food Not Bombs, and it's written by some fucking meth addict, like actually. Oh, yeah. And like this, and I know these people. Like I know these people and exactly what they're like, and they're fucking
written by pseudo-communists, is what it's written by.
It's written by the people that we were talking about at the beginning of the special, which is basically Ryan put it as kind of like an evolved teenage rebellion.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's so weird having someone in the stream that has my same name.
Sorry, Ryan?
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
so
the first
weird.
time it's happened. Do either of you maybe remember the anti-WTO protests in the very late 90s and early 2000s? Google
Hmm.
search the Battle of Seattle one of these days.
Yeah, people should.
What you were
I was
seeing,
there.
right
Yeah,
on.
I grew up in Seattle, and so I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
actually I didn't really protest, but I went to an alternative high school, and I mean the WTO was a really kind of fucked up thing, and it was worth protesting, definitely.
yeah.
But and I had a teacher at my high school. My high school was like a hippie alternative school, and I had a teacher who was really he was the American government. He taught it was American government was the actual requirement that you were supposed to be teaching, but his class was called American Government and Economics because he thought it was so important to teach kids about capitalism and stuff. And honestly, he had a good message. Like overall, he was a cool guy. Horrible teacher. Horrible teacher. You wanted to fall asleep I couldn't take classes from him just because he was so boring. But he encouraged students to like for months was encouraging students to talk about what the WTO was and get as many people as he could to protest. And that really that was like the probably biggest protest of the 90s by far. And it was insane. I got tear gassed probably about 5 miles away from or maybe more like 3 miles, but still like 3 miles away from anywhere where the protests were really supposed to be happening. Like you thought it was going to be in downtown Seattle. I got fucking tear gassed getting off of work. I worked at a movie theater in high school, and I was getting off of work, just walking, and all of a sudden, and it was invisible tear gas. It was like so strong. They upgraded the tear gas game to this like super strong tear gas, and it just went downwind. And I was just walking, and I was with like a few friends. Like they picked me up because we were going somewhere, and then all of a sudden we're like, ah, shit, what the hell, you know? And yeah, I was just getting off of work. It was pretty crazy. But it became a very much one of those things where about 5% of the people protesting really knew what they were protesting, and then everybody else was just like, yeah, let's loot stuff.
God.
Well, today what you saw is just a perfect repeat of that. Like it looked the same to me.
Mm-hmm.
People running through cities,
today.
smashing things as much as possible while running.
Well,
that was the main bulk of the people that were actually committing mainline violence. There's actually two kinds of protesters I noticed. There were the people who literally went to the public entrances and linked arms and actively assaulted people trying to get through them, and then basically just tossed them back out. And it happened a lot. In fact, it happened so close to Alex Jones, where Alex Jones was, that he took the hand of one of the women who got assaulted and wandered back out of the gate to basically be like, who the hell assaulted this woman? And then he got surrounded, and the police immediately ran over and started being like, Alex, you might want to get out of these people. And Alex was just like looking around. At first, he was angry and they scattered, but then they closed ranks on him very quickly. And then the actual second type of violence was, I would say, the Antifa and the communists were literally just sprinting from location to location, being herded, ironically, by police. Flashbangs and tear gas, those tear gas hoses that they have now, and just basically hurting these people because they were sprinting around causing chaos. And I mean full bore sprinting.
Interesting. We were looking at the quote unquote queer dance party, and it was basically all women who didn't actually even look like lesbians, mostly.
Except for one gay Jewish guy.
Yeah, except for the one gay Jewish guy and a few. Just it was about 85% women who were probably 85% straight, and it's interesting. You look at the people who are the Antifa, and a lot of them would probably identify as queer, but ultimately the Antifa people largely, I think, appeals to heterosexual male straight guys who are largely white, and they want to be edgy, teenage kind of rebellion, and they'll do it under this notion of oh yeah, we're sticking up for the oppressed because the fascists are gonna they're gonna round up all of the gays and all of the people of color and put them in the oven. But ultimately these people are just trying to make a statement that we're not one of the bad oppressive straight white men. because they're mostly straight white men.
What's the most ironic part is there's a white person carrying around a sign that read "White Lives Matter Too Much." And I'm like, you're white as well, right?
That's the amazing thing. Yeah, I've made so many jokes on people's timelines, like, regressive leftist friends of mine who I'm just done with now. I posted. Ryan saw my post. Maybe I should read that. I want to read that out loud. Well, yeah, maybe it's not fitting for the stream. I'm trying to undo just to get rid of some of my Facebook friends because there's just so many awful ones and they're just wasting my time at this point. So I made a really long post like, here's a list of reasons why you should probably unfriend me because I probably hate you, and it was pretty long. And these people, people will post these, virtue signaling fucking, like, these white men being like, oh, white people are so awful, blah, 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 blah. And I always post, I'm like, oh yeah, you think you keep posting things like this and no one will realize you're white someday, sooner or later, everyone will forget that you're white. And it's so embarrassing because, like, there was a story, I think Sargon was talking about, of a Chinese guy who showed up to a Black Lives Matter protest in, like, Milwaukee or something, like one of the places where
there was that one video of the guy who was giving his story of what happened to him there, and they didn't want to beat him out because he was Chinese. And the exact
they started beating him up, and then they realized he wasn't white.
He was like, oh, and I shit you not, I remember the literal quote because I remember these things, and that's why I do a lot of my journalism. I do the dots,
Mm-hmm.
And they literally said, "Don't fuck with Chinese people," and that was why they didn't fuck with him. Don't fuck with Chinese. Like, first of all, that rings that they weren't beating him up because he was specifically a minority, but because they are concerned of what a Chinese guy could do. And there's a really ironic stereotype going around, and I know it's really true for the black community, that Chinese guys are all martial artists, because, let's face it, people who go and riot, who are, the not Black Lives Matter supporters in general, but the actual violent radical separatists, tend to be kind of racist. So it's not really a stretch to finally come to the conclusion that perhaps they are actually just very racist. And they hold all the same racist views that every other racist would hold, including the racist idea that Chinese people are really good at martial arts.
Well, I suspect that I suspect that most likely it was probably just, don't fuck with him, he's Chinese, he's not white. That's probably what it really meant. But there is a possibility. I don't know about the good at martial arts thing, but I think that there could be a possibility of being afraid of Chinese gangs. Because most cities have a Chinatown and most Chinatowns have a bit of organized crime. So there is that potentially happening because, like, China's involvement in America, it's in terms of land ownership and various economic things, has gotten pretty strong and much more strong during the Obama administration than it was prior. So I do know that a lot of people are scared of Chinese gangs. They do have guns. They do shoot people. So
they're also really good at human trafficking. Is the funny part about them. They are really good at it. Some would argue that's the Chinese gang's best actual ability, is to traffic people, because that's their biggest. That's really their biggest selling point.
They've been at it for centuries. The opiate triads go way, way back, way back.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're
at least as old. There are tons of people that really just want to get out of China because it's still kind of pretty much communist. So they're willing to be, under gang control to get away from it.
Yeah.
So we can go on for another maybe 10 minutes or so, but I think I want to likely save this stream at least for a while. So I'm going to go look at the chat, see if anybody has any questions, any other things to bring up. Chat, you got any questions? Thanks for not giving any downvotes, people. 27 likes, no downvotes. That's nice. Thank you.
We had an amazing stream.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. This is one of my few streams where we're like actually really talking about a topic. I should do more that are like this. I'm always just ended up with people that are drinking and calling each other cunts all the time. At this point, I keep doing that.
Many conflicting ideologies in a room tends to when people are drunk, heads get butted.
Yeah. Oh, somebody just asked if I went to Nova, and yes, I actually did. I went to Nova Alternative High School. That's funny that somebody knows what I'm talking about. Oh my god, people are downvoting. Fuck you guys. Don't downvote just because I said that. You guys are rude. And who is Jack Austin? Okay. No, I really yes, I did go to Nova. Nova was a pretty intensely awesome place to go as a gay kid in the 1990s. It was a high school that had only about 250 students, and we were very close with our teachers, and that was pretty awesome. So yeah, I went to Nova, the mediocre atheist. Did you go to Nova? Are you somebody that I would have known or something? Will I vote in 2020? Yeah, probably. Though I am pretty scared that
Kanye West will be running for the Democratic ticket.
Yeah, I mean, I'm scared of, like stupid regressive leftist people that
Who's running for Congress?
Wait, so mediocre atheist wants to talk to me about Nova culture. Yes, you can talk to me about the Nova culture. I want to vote theoretically, but I am really scared that the regressive left is going to try to fight off any sort of good Democratic candidate, and we're just going to get a bunch of fucking stupid candidates in 2020, and conservatives are going to win by a long shot, and then it's going to be a situation where I don't really feel sad that the Democratic Party is not winning. So I'll probably vote third party and just be kind of like meh about it all.
Well, it's what happened in the second Obama election. Is Obama made the Republican candidates kind of look slow and idiotic, and they basically, and the media was starting that period of spin where they had more control over voters than they do now. They completely spun it one way because people were sick and tired of the Bush administration. So it resulted in basically two very easily winnable campaigns, and the Republican Party was unable really to field anyone winnable this election. And ironically, the former Democrat Donald Trump stepped up to the plate and completely bulldozed his way through the joke candidates. It's going to take somebody similar for the Democrats in 2020 to be able to bulldoze through, and it'd have to be someone along the same personality line as Donald Trump. Otherwise, it's just going to be a non-effectual politician again.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I mean, I don't know, if we had somebody that was somewhat like Bernie Sanders, we could potentially win. They would have to, not be sabotaged. But man, Bernie Sanders, if those are the principles you want, if you're into what he stands for, he was kind of a once in a lifetime candidate, and the reason why is because of his gigantic history of civil rights causes, and also calling out big bank corruption in like 1992. And you can find footage of Bernie Sanders talking about crony capitalism and bank bailouts, things that ended up becoming worse problems. He was already speaking about those in 1992. So yeah, he was old, but at the same time, he had always been saying that stuff. So what was he going to have to lose by keeping saying that if he were to become president? So that was really cool, and I don't know if we're going to come across another person like Bernie Sanders in that way. So hey Prince, do you feel like you're going to have fun with the next 4 years? Why, yes, I think I'm going to have a great time. And I say that because I have long felt that I have been penalized my entire life by not just by being a rebel, but by being honest and just sort of like calling a spade. And like, even when people would admit that I was potentially, good at talented in music or in theater or whatever I was doing, people were like, well, you're a little bit blunt. And there's this nice, good girl who is also a pretty good scriptwriter. We're gonna give her all the opportunities. This is not a specific person I'm talking about. This is just sort of the general trend. So I was always there was always this thing with me where I always had a good, amount of people who were always interested in, my plays or my music. But there was always the people in charge were always kind of like afraid to do business with me because I was too controversial and that kind of thing. I think if any cultural, I'm almost done with this thought. If any cultural climate will be okay with controversial opinion havers and controversial playwrights like myself, it would be the Trump cultural climate. So I think that I'm going to personally have a lot of fun for the next 4 years. Yes, that's the answer to the question. I'm sorry, what were you saying, Haresay?
I was agreeing. It's going to be a complete boon in the current cultural climate. And it used to be back in the day when journalists and people who really were into arts wanted you to be blunt. And I know it's harkening back to Marxism real quick, but wasn't one of the old philosophies for damaging a culture was to make meaningless art?
That doesn't surprise me at all. And there's if you really look at Paul Joseph Watson had probably Paul Joseph Watson's best video is called Modern Art is Bullshit or something. And he and I like to think of it as it's a greater metaphor to all of politics. It's a microcosm. The modern art world. And it's the same for theater and even to a certain degree music, though music used to be a somewhat profitable industry for a while, but modern art and theater have not been profitable for a very long time. Like the only reason that modern art exists is because there's this pretentious grant system and museum system that gives certain people opportunities and sells tickets, but even those museums probably couldn't keep in business without donors. And so the thing is, modern art has a very elaborate system of like mostly creating art that isn't really that hard to make and then having a lot of like justification for it. So, that's why you see the art that's like, a white canvas with a few splotches of paint that somebody threw on from across the room, and then you have to read about how it was made, and that's the only reason that it's interesting. And that's the cliche of an example of modern art, but it is kind of like that if you go to modern art museums. It's not totally untrue, and it is a gigantic system that's based around insiders and elitism and they reject people who are legitimately very talented. Like there's this one artist that they talked about who creates, like giant hyper realistic sculptures. Like he'll do like a gigantic head sculpture or something that looks exactly like a gigantic human head. And he is rejected by the modern art culture. And you guys should really watch the Paul Joseph Watson thing. And I think that one of the things that this leads back to what you're saying is that the people in charge don't want people speaking truth to power, be that through comedy or art. So if there's some random little genius with his internet that is making really, really amazing art that, is like, they would like to silence that because that could threaten their power. A lot of people say that this election was won with memes. This election was won with a gigantic pool of people making brilliant little Pepe political commentary. And
great meme war.
Yeah, and that stuff is not going to get in a modern art museum this year. But there might be some retrospective in 10 years from of all the memes that happened in 2016. It would be like the meme war of 2016, but it would be compiled by some pretentious person that it's like 10 years too late. They don't.
Well, I think it'll be compiled by someone on the other side because I don't want to say our side.
That too.
Already too busy just reveling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it will be somebody on the other side, and it will talk, and they'll try to paint it in a negative light. They'll try to be like, this is all the fascist memes and blah 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 blah. They won't touch on the irony and the sarcasm and of what was really going on with the memes. They'll falsely represent what they really were.
and it'll ironically generate a counterculture who go, well, really were these people bad? And then they look back at it, and then but because we kind of won, that'll already be kind of the gist. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Especially if the country doesn't literally fall apart.
Yeah. So I'm thinking I'll take one more question, and then I'm going to end the stream. So somebody ask one more question. Blah, 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 libertarian, RIP 4chan, blah, 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 blah. I can see what you guys are saying, and you should ask another question. I'm going to count down from 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24. You guys, you're supposed to ask a good question. Okay, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20. Will you have my baby? I'm not sure, Eric. You're gonna have to send me your stats. Maybe send some nudes. Tweet me some nudes. How about you do that? Okay. I think that's gonna wrap up this stream. Thank you guys. Say your goodbyes to the audience.
I'll let Ryan take the first. Remember, people. Only you can stop liberals rioting in the streets in dumpster fires. I think my exit should be. Remember, kids. Only you can stop dumpster fires.
And remember, Ryan's channel is called Samas.broadcast. It's linked from my channel if you look at the related channels. So go check out his channel if you liked what he had to say. And we're gonna go. Bye.